All right, what's up out there to all of my fellow gold diggers? This is your girl Rita, also known as the self-proclaimed gold digger. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. I am so glad to have you. But if you are a fellow gold digger, welcome back. Y'all know I love and I appreciate each and every one of you. And tonight it is time for Tipsy Tuesday. Tonight, we are going to be talking about money because we are doing kind of like a review of the book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Tonight, we are covering the first two chapters where they talk about credit and they talk about bank accounts. So that's what we are going to be getting into so that you can secure the bag and make sure your finances are set up like they are supposed to. Now, before we get into it, let me just do a quick social media check to make sure I am good on all of the different platforms. And then we're going to get started. And I also have, okay, good there. I also have a couple of church announcements for you. Let me make sure I'm good over here. I hope everyone has been having a good week and that everything has been going well for you so far. All right. And I am good there. All right. So if you are new to Tipsy Tuesday, pretty much what we do is on Tuesday nights, I share some tips as we take some sips. So y'all, tonight, you do not have to drink anything alcoholic. Tonight, I'm sipping on a couple different things. So I'm sipping on my water per usual. And then I'm trying to finish. I'm trying to shake it up. I got this naked juice, which is really good because I've been trying to eat. I'm trying to be more healthy and stuff, and I'm hungry right now, y'all. So, it's too late for me to actually eat a meal. So I'm gonna try and finish this juice, and then I got some carrots that I'm snacking on and stuff like that. But that's all I'm sipping on tonight to kind of prevent me from trying to eat anything heavy tonight since it's already so late. Okay. All right. Also with Tipsy Tuesday, we have a theme song. So I'm going to go ahead and do our Tipsy Tuesday theme song. If you know the song, go ahead and sing along with me. All right, here we go. Tip to Tipsy Tuesday. Tip to Tipsy Tuesday. Tip to Tipsy Tuesday. Get your tips and pass the dues. Say Tipsy Tuesday. And I always say, once you hear that song, that is your official welcome to Tipsy Tuesday. Okay. A couple of church announcements. First and foremost, I want to make sure that I thank all of my new subscribers that have joined my channel. I'm so very appreciative of each and every one of you. So thank y'all for showing your support and subscribing to my channel. If this is your first time tuning in to any of my content and you are not subscribed, please go ahead and do so if you are finding the content helpful as well as enjoying it. And feel free to like and share with a friend. Okay, so greatly appreciate that. Also, the other church announcement I had, we did do a side hustle Saturday on this past Saturday, and that was where I interviewed the author, Dr. Sandra Pack. She's a first-time author, so she has her book out. Please check out that interview I did and see how you can support her because her book is officially launching on this coming Saturday. So if you can support her in any way, shape, or form, please make sure you do so. And all the information for how you can do that will be on the Side Hustle Saturday. It was Side Hustle Saturday / Small Business Saturday. The Small Business Saturday is a new segment that we have incorporated with Side Hustle Saturday to kind of highlight small business owners, entrepreneurs out there, and just feature them. With that being said, if you are a small business or entrepreneur and you want to be featured on Small Business Saturday, then please send me an email so I can see how to get in touch with you, find out a little bit about your business so that we can have you on a Side Hustle Saturday / Small Business Saturday. So my channel first started, especially for everyone who's new, my channel first started because what I was doing a lot of was side hustles, but also with me having my main business, I was trying to make sure I help people by showing them some of the mistakes that I made in hopes that you will avoid some of the mistakes, as well as sharing with you some of the lessons that I learned. So supporting small businesses, supporting entrepreneurs. That has always been the heart of this channel. And that is always what we are going to try and champion, as well as making sure that y'all are reaching and achieving your goals. Okay. All right. So those were the church announcements. Before we get into tonight's topic, did y'all check out last week's Tipsy Tuesday? Last week, that was a good episode as well, because that was when I was doing the book review of 50 Cent's book, Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. That was impromptu because I didn't expect, well, I expected his book to be good, but I wasn't expecting to do a video on it. But he had so many gems in his book that I decided to do a quick book review of his book. That is another good book to check out if you are a business owner or entrepreneur, just as well as if you just want to be successful in life in general. Some of the principles in that book will definitely help you along on that journey. So check out 50 Cent's book, Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. I also had suggested Will Smith's book as well during that video too. But tonight we are finally getting into the book that I had promised you guys that I have been trying to read for a few months now and have not been able to complete it. So I was like, if I do the review on Tipsy Tuesday, this will help me to complete the book. So the book is I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. I'm pulling up the book as well as my notes. All of my notes are on the phone. Yeah, Ramit Sethi. And that's Ramitsethi. Like I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly, but I know Ramit I'm saying correctly, but not his last name. So please be sure to check it out. Now, we're just covering the first 2 chapters, as well as I do have some notes on the introduction. We also did a book review of Tiffany the Budgetista's book, Get Good with Money. So the difference between these 2 books that I've noticed so far is Ramit, his information is very candid and very straightforward. So he has a very direct approach, a very candid approach, kind of joking approach. Not joking about, money specifically, but just some of the situations that he's encountered. So I think you will enjoy the book if you have not already gotten it or already read it. Okay. But tonight we are just covering the first 2 chapters. Chapter 1 is talking about credit. It was actually called, let me see if I can find it, Optimizing Your Credit. And it talks about credit as well as your credit cards. And then chapter 2 is talking about bank accounts, and it's called Beat the Banks. Now, the way his book is set up is that he pretty much, it's like a 6-week guide. And so he wants you to take these steps like once a week in order to get your finances set up optimally so that you can get rich. He will teach you how to live rich or whatever. But I will say this, in his introduction, there were 2 things that I noticed. In the introduction, he asked, what does a rich life look like for you? And once again, a lot of these finance books, they do have like the meat and potatoes of what you need to do, but it also has some like mindset work that you need to do. Like you really need to shift your mindset or just start thinking about what you would like for your life to look like. Like if you were rich, how would that look? What would your lifestyle look like? And he even used in his book the example, like it doesn't have to be anything big or anything lavish. He talked about when he was first thinking about his rich lifestyle, the only thing he wanted to do at first was to be able to order an appetizer at a restaurant, because at the time he was not able to do that. So it doesn't have to be anything big, but just definitely think about if you were rich or if you had more money than what you have right now, what are some of the things that you would want to do? What would your life look like? Start picturing it, start envisioning it, so that you can start working towards it. And also, once you start putting that picture in your head, it does kind of encourage you and inspire you to stay committed to your goals and stay committed to you walking out the steps that you need to take and not getting discouraged or getting distracted. Because oftentimes we'll set these goals and we will get distracted and forget why we are doing the things that we are doing. So creating that picture in your head of why you want to be rich or live a rich lifestyle, I should say. And rich is relative. I always say that too. Rich is relative. So a rich lifestyle, like he said in his book, it could just be, every time you go out to eat, you want to be able to get an appetizer. Or it could be driving a nice car, living in a certain neighborhood, being able to buy certain types of clothes, or going on vacations. Whatever your rich lifestyle is, that is relative to you. Okay. But when I say relative to you, make sure you are determining what that is going to look like, and not society. Because oftentimes we will let society dictate what a rich lifestyle looks like. And I've shared that with you too, my experiences with that once I had graduated from school, and what people expected me to do and drive and have as an optometrist. And I'm like, that is not what I want. That is not the rich lifestyle that I am looking for. I have my own definitions of what a rich lifestyle looks like. So make sure you are defining it for you and not allowing other people to define it for you. Okay. So rich is relative. You might think having $50,000 is rich. Some people might think having $20,000 is rich. Some people might think having $100,000 or $1 million is rich. And some people, and honestly, y'all, when I say rich is relative, some people will think having, some people are striving to have $1 million or whatever. And someone else could say, like, having $1 million, I am poor, like I am broke. Okay. So rich is relative. Now, money does afford you certain opportunities and things like that, and certain comfort. So don't get it twisted, but also you just got to know what it's going to look like for your particular lifestyle. All right. So that was the introduction. Well, the main takeaway from the introduction is, what does your rich lifestyle look like? And then also he mentioned that even in the first 2 chapters that I read, a lot of ways in order for you to achieve this rich lifestyle is from you automating your money. And I'm going to talk briefly about that too. And because I struggle with this, is automating our money. And when it comes to automating your money, that could be automating your savings, automating paying your bills, automating allocating stuff for investments. So just making stuff where it's kind of like set it, and I won't say forget it, but so you're not thinking about it. Because oftentimes, I know for me personally, I have certain goals that I want to achieve, or certain things I want to do with my money. And if it's left up to me, I might be good doing it for a couple of months, or 2 to 3 months, and then I'll forget. And I was like, oh yeah, I was supposed to be allocating this amount of money into my savings account, or this amount of money into my investment account, or I was supposed to be saving up, $50 for us to take this particular trip. So I'll start off good, but then I'll forget if it's not automated. So try and get in the habit of automating your money, automating your savings, so you're not having to think about it, and it helps your money to grow. I've shared with y'all previously, when it comes to like my personal savings, I have a certain amount allocated that goes to my savings. Well, I take that back. I have a certain amount that automatically goes to my checking account. Anything over that amount, it automatically goes to my savings account. So I have it set up like, hey, this is my budget. Like, I know what my monthly expenses are for the month. So I have that particular amount designated into my checking account each month when I get paid or whatever. And any amount that I get over that, then that automatically goes to my savings account. Now, when I say any amount over that, like, you might think, well, you should be getting paid the same amount each month or each week or whatever, or every 2 weeks when you get paid. And I get pretty much paid the same amount, but I have that certain amount going to my checking account first and the rest going to my savings. So when I get a raise, or I'm the one who would give me a raise or whatever with my business. So if I give myself a raise, or I give myself an increase, I don't see any of that increase. That increase automatically goes to my savings account. And whatever I need for my regular bills, it comes still to my checking account. So any increase I have automatically is out of sight and directed towards my savings. We've talked about on this channel about lifestyle creep, and that is what happens to a lot of people. It's like once we start earning more, we start spending more. So one of the ways I kind of safeguard so that I don't get caught up with lifestyle creep is if I have a raise, if I have an increase, if I have like a bonus where I give myself a little extra for the month or whatever, I don't see that extra. My savings account sees it, but I myself do not see it. So I'm not tempted to spend it, or I'm not as easily tempted to spend it. So I'm automating my money in that regard. Okay. All right. So that's what we have going on. And that was from the introduction. We are going to get into chapter 1, where it talks about optimizing your credit. And let me see if I have any comments. What's up, Dark Room Media? They are saying hello. Good to see y'all. And if you're joining, please feel free to put say hello in the chat or whatever. And if you have any questions, drop it in the chat as well so that I can see it. I'll be checking it periodically. All right, so y'all, I think part of the reason I told y'all it's been taking me months to get through this book. And the reason why I was stuck on chapter 1, and I think the reason why it took me a while to get through the book is nothing against the book, is that the first chapter was about credit. And y'all know we talked heavily about credit a couple of months ago, and that was when I kind of started reading the book and everything. So credit is a lot. What it's now, since I was forced to read it to be able to review it with you guys, what this tells me, the fact that chapter 1 is about credit, it tells, and even in Get Good with Money, we talked about credit. It emphasizes how important having good credit is. Make sure your credit is good. And I've shared with y'all my story about why, when I was following Dave Ramsey and I didn't think credit was good, because that was what he had preached about, getting your credit score to 0 and all this kind of stuff. So there was a point in time in my life I really did not care what my credit score was, and I was trying to get it as low as possible, following behind Dave Ramsey. Okay, you have to check out one of the credit videos to hear the full story if you're interested. So I am realizing, how important credit is. So making sure you have good credit, or the best credit as possible, it is going to be a key step in terms of your financial decisions, as well as making sure you are taking home as much money as possible. Throughout the book, throughout this chapter, he used examples of where if you don't have a good credit score, or even if you do have the first example he used, let me back up. The first example he used was when he went to buy a car, and he had a good credit score. He even said that the person at the dealership remarked how good of a credit score he had, but he wasn't able to get the interest rate that he wanted, because they said at the dealership that he had a good credit score, but not a good credit mix. So we talked about that in the credit series. Like, there are, I want to say it was 5 components of the credit score. Your payment history, that's the biggest one. Credit utilization, your credit history, credit mix, which is what they are referring to, and there's something else, and I can't remember it now. But credit mix, they want to see that you have a mix of credit. And when we did the credit series, I told you guys, what was recommended by someone who deals heavily in credit is that you should have 2 credit cards, a good credit mix. And hold on, let me also put out a disclaimer, y'all, before anybody starts saying this is what she told me to do or whatever. Y'all, I am not a financial expert. I am not a financial advisor. I am just the girl on YouTube sharing with you some of the things that I have learned. Okay, please do your own research, do your own due diligence, fact check me before you make any major financial decisions. Okay, so because I don't want y'all blaming me, talking about this is what she told me to do or whatever. She is just a girl on YouTube. All right, so but there was a credit, someone who deals heavily in credit, who I was looking at some of her information, and she suggested that you have 4 accounts to help build up your credit score. And that was 2 credit cards, 1 long-term installment loan, and 1 short-term installment loan. And she had also suggested like the quickest way to boost your credit is through credit cards, because that is something that is looked at each month. Now, a long-term installment was anything over 3 months, and most of us have that because that would be considered like your student loan. If you have a mortgage, that's also considered a long-term installment. Or if you have a car loan, that when you first open up that loan, it was for a period longer than 3 years, that is considered a long-term installment loan. A short-term installment loan is anything less than 3 months. So maybe if you have a furniture loan or a personal loan or something like that, where it's less than 3 months, you want to have that as part of your credit mix. And that's a good mix of credit to have in order to make sure your score stays healthy. So in his example, he was saying that he did not get the interest rate that he wanted for his car because he just did not have a good credit mix. Okay. So go back and look at some of the credit videos where we talk more specifically about the long-term loans, short-term installments, as well as the 2 types of credit cards that you need to have. Now, I must emphasize with the credit cards, once again, you need to, and with any loan, but definitely with the credit cards, because you need to pay those on time. Definitely your credit cards. Just like I was saying that the credit cards are a great way for you to easily boost your credit score. It's also a great way for your credit score to go down if you're not, using it appropriately or responsibly. So know that you can easily boost your score. And I shared with you guys that my score went up when I started doing some of these practices that we talked about a couple of months ago when we were talking about credit. My score definitely went up just within 60 days, just from me implementing some of the techniques that we talked about. So you can definitely boost your credit score, but you want to make sure you are making your payments on time, because not doing so will also cause your credit score to dip. And payment history, making payments on time, is the largest part of your credit score. It makes up 35% of your credit. Okay. So you have to have good credit. And then he also talks about throughout the book, where because you don't have good credit, and usually if you don't have good credit, usually what that equates to is, yes, you will be paying a higher interest rate for certain loans. And that could be like in his example, the car loan. It could also be if you're trying to purchase a home, you might have a higher interest rate on your mortgage. And especially with a large purchase like a home, that mortgage, that can be, tens of thousands of dollars over time, just because your credit score was not that good. For a car loan, that's not, it's a big purchase, but it's not as big as a home. So that can be a few $1,000s difference that you're paying extra because you did not have a good credit score. So you want to make sure your credit score is as optimal as possible. And if it's not, then you might want to consider paying cash for some of the things, like maybe buying a car or, financing things, whether it's furniture or stuff like that, because chances are you're going to be paying a higher interest rate, and that can cost you in the long run, which if you're paying an extra $3,000 on a car over, the life of the loan, imagine what you could have done with that $3,000. Could you have used it for savings? Could you have used it for investments? So those kinds of things are preventing you from being able to get to that rich lifestyle that you want. Also, your payments might be more because of your credit score as well. So keep those things in mind, that in the immediate thing, it might not be as bad or whatever, it might not seem like a big thing, but you making those extra payments or having that higher interest rate over time, it equates to thousands of dollars. So imagine how many cars you have owned in your lifetime. And let's say you're paying an extra $3,000 each time because you didn't have a good credit score. A lot of people, well, I don't know. I hear research, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, right or wrong or whatever, but I hear research, a lot of people end up buying a car like every 4 to 5 years or so. So imagine if you are that type of person who's getting a new car every 5 years, and you don't have the best credit score, and you end up paying $3,000 extra on your loan. That, if in the course of 20 years, that's 4 cars, that's an extra $12,000 that you're paying, compared to somebody who has a better credit score and can get a lower interest rate. Now, disclaimer, these are arbitrary numbers. These are just examples. These are not anything specific. The gist of the message is, with you having a lower credit score, you usually are going to have a higher interest rate. A higher interest rate means that you are going to be paying more money for the same loan that someone else would get with a better interest rate. So let's say someone, once again, arbitrary numbers, let's say you have a car loan. Instead of you paying maybe 2% interest rate for your car loan, because of your credit score, you're having to pay 5% interest rate on your car loan. So that's the big thing. Same thing when it comes to mortgages, buying a home. And y'all know these mortgage rates are high, or higher than what we saw just 4 years ago. They are higher. Now, of course, the baby boomers are going to say they are still lower than what they had to pay, but these interest rates are higher, and also the cost of homes are higher compared to what the baby boomers had at their time and everything. So if you have a poor credit score, instead of you getting a home loan for 7%, your home loan might be 8%. And just think, if that's a $200,000 home or a $300,000 home, just think about all the extra money, or how much extra your payments are going to be during the life of that loan. So it pays to have a good credit score. So just be mindful of that, okay? I'm trying to see what else I want to say about that. We talked about paying your bills on time. Oh, so he also said, so he has these 6 commandments of credit cards that I'm going to go over with you really quickly. And also, he suggests that you do not accept the credit card offers that come through the mail. He suggests you doing your own research and finding the best credit card for you. And he recommends you having like a rewards card. So either a card that's going to give you cash back, or a card that's going to give you travel rewards. He kind of leans more towards cash back, just because the travel rewards can be a little, funny and stuff like that in terms of the points and everything, where the cash back is more straightforward. But he definitely recommends, when you get a credit card, you want to make sure that you are getting some perks. And he also says that the credit cards also give you some added benefits if you use it for your purchases. Now, the key thing is, with the credit card, you need to pay your balance off, okay? Do not carry a balance from month to month, or at least a high balance. We talked about in the credit card series, a lot of times they suggest that your balance should only be about 30%, but a better rate is like under 10% in order to help boost your credit score. So don't carry these balances. And that is looking at your credit utilization. And we went into specifics regarding the credit utilization and how you can kind of like manipulate that system to make it look like you're not using a whole lot of credit. Because oftentimes, let's say if your balance is $1,000 and you're trying to keep your credit utilization to 10%, that does not necessarily mean that all you can spend on that card is $100. You just need to make sure that that balance is at $100 when your credit card company reports to the credit bureaus. But we go more in depth in that on one of the credit videos. I think it was the second credit video that we did, where you can see how you can optimize it to make it look like you're only using 10% of that credit. So don't think that if you have $1,000 balance that all you can spend on it is $100. That is not the case. You do have to be savvy. You do have to be, you have to be strategic with it. You can definitely spend more, but you just need to make sure that balance is under 10%. at the time that they report your credit utilization to the credit card companies. Okay. So yeah, he recommends for you to get a cash reward card, or excuse me, some kind of reward card, preferably a cash back. And then also he says do not, he does not recommend for you to get the store card. So like if you, I don't know, what's this, like a Macy's card, a Kohl's card, don't use the store cards. And really those, they really are not that good. They usually do have higher interest rates and very little perks, if anything. They usually will save you money. Like if you're buying from that store or whatever, like maybe you'll save 10% or 20%. But in the grand scheme of things, unless, I don't know, he doesn't recommend it. Unless you are like an avid buyer of that, going to that store, then maybe it could possibly benefit you if every time you get 10% off for using that card. But same thing applies. You want to make sure you pay it in full, because those usually have a higher interest rate to them, those store cards. But let me get into his 6 commandments of credit cards. So let me make sure I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I do have all 6. So the first one is pay your bill on time. We talked about that. Pay it on time, even if it's only the minimum payment showing that you paid. Now, once again, don't just pay the minimum payment, but at least set it up to make the minimum payment so you will get credited for an on-time payment. Okay. And that is what you can set up for your automated payment. So you want to automate that payment. And also automating, when we did the credit series, we talked about when you automate that payment, that's also like a little green flag for you to kind of help boost your credit score as well. So you want to automate the payment. If you're like, I don't know if I'm going to have all the money in my account at the time it's due, at least set up the automated payment to make the minimum payment amount so that you at least get credited for an on-time payment, and also avoid any late fees because you just didn't make the payment on time. So that was commandment number 1, pay your bill on time and set up automatic payments. The second thing, or the second commandment he has, is to try to get your fees on your card waived. So y'all, so these are good tips and points. I don't know if I would call them commandments, because first and foremost, if you're making your payments on time, hopefully you're not incurring any fees. But if you do incur a fee, such as a late fee or something like that, you want to try to get the fee waived. Also, if the card has an annual fee, he also recommends seeing if you can get that fee waived as well. Sometimes with some of these annual fees, like that first year, sometimes they don't make you pay. And so he had suggested like maybe like a month or 2 before your card is supposed to renew and you are about to get charged that annual fee, see if you can get it waived. And he even has little scripts and specific things for you to say to the credit card rep or whoever you're speaking to, so you will know what to say when you're speaking to them. But he says if they can't get it waived, you might want to consider going with another credit card, or depending on, how much you value that card, you might want to stick with them. But you have to assess what your needs are and see if it's going to be feasible for you. But if there are any fees, you want to try and get them waived, especially any late fees. Hopefully we're not accumulating late fees, but if for some reason you do get a late fee, try and get it waived, as well as if there is an annual fee on your card, see if you can get that waived as well. The third commandment he has is negotiate a lower APR. Now, I am definitely in favor of this, okay? Because when we did the credit series 2, we talked about you can I want to say it's every 6 months, and he suggests every 6 to 12 months, see if you can get a lower APR or a lower interest rate on your credit card. You might be surprised what will happen, okay? Especially now, once again, we're trying to pay off these balances pretty much in full. But if for some reason you're carrying a balance, you want to try and get the lowest APR as possible. And if you're making your payments on time, then that will definitely help and look favorably for you to try and get a lower APR. I know majority of the time when I've called, I think it's only been one time when I called and they said they could not lower my APR. But usually when I've called and asked them to lower my APR, usually it has been done. Okay. So don't hesitate to call them and see what can be done. And I always say it never hurts to ask. The worst they're going to tell you is no. And what you do is just call again. And if they tell you no, wait another 6 months, call again and see, yep, it's me again. I'm back trying to see if I can get this APR lowered. And during that 6 month time frame, you also want to make sure you are making on-time payments and keeping your balance as low as possible. Now, one thing I do want to mention, and I don't think he really talked about it in the book, or if he did, he might have mentioned it briefly, but I really can't recall if he did. So if you do have credit cards, you want to keep them active, even if it's something minor that you put on there, like a little small subscription like Netflix or something like that. You want to keep it active, because if they see that your credit card is not active, like you're not making purchases, they can close your card. And we talked about that. Credit history, the length of like how long you've had credit, also is a factor. And that might have been the one I missed. I can't remember. With the 5 components of your credit score, that also affects your credit score. And your credit history is an average. This is what I had to learn and remember. Your credit history is an average. So it's an average of all the accounts. So if you have a newer account, it's going to bring your average down. But if you have an older account, it's going to keep your average longer. So let's say, usually I use the example, if you had an account that, let's say you have a student loan and that student loan is 10 years old, and then you have a credit card and that credit card is 5 years old. So even though the student loan is 10 years old, that is not your credit history. Your credit history is actually going to be the average of those two, which is 15, which is 7.5 years. Okay. So if you have a credit card, let's say you have 2 credit cards and one of them is 10 years old and one of them is 5 years old, and you decide to close the credit card that is 10 years old because you're like, I don't even use this card at all. Guess what? You just cut your credit history in half to the 5 years, and that can negatively affect your credit score. And that's why you see, or you've heard people say, like, when their student loans were forgiven, their credit score went down a little bit. Now, it's great, though. It's great that the student loans were forgiven, because I would definitely take that over, a hit to my credit score, because I know how to make it come back up. But that is probably why their credit score went down, because if they've had that loan, like some of people were qualifying for, the PSLF, the public service loan forgiveness. And I forget how long you had to do it. I don't know if it was 10 years or 20 years, but either way, let's say it was 10 years. So if they've forgiven a loan that was 10 years old, that's a big chunk of your credit history. So yes, it will cause your credit score to dip. Okay. So that was I got off on a tangent. That was negotiate a lower APR. And then we'll get into the 4th credit commandment of credit cards. All right, sorry, y'all. And let me see. What's up, April? I see she joined. She says, hello, all. I'm glad that you were able to join us tonight. And then she also says, let's see, I let my Victoria's Secret card close on me. It dropped my credit score by like 10 points. Nope, won't do that twice. Well, at least you learned. And that's not too bad. The 10 even though it is a lot, but the steps that you can take to increase your credit score and get those 10 points back. Because I forgot how much mine went up when I did the steps. I can't remember. I know it was a good bit. I want to say it was at least like 40 or 50 points, maybe even higher than that it went up once I started implementing the things we had talked about during the credit videos. All right, so we talked about negotiate a lower APR. And he does mention this. I'm sorry, y'all. So that was actually number 4. Keep your main card for a long time and keep them active. So that was number 4, the 4th commandment of credit cards. The 5th one is to try to get more credit. Now, he cautions that you should only do this if you are a financially responsible person and you have been paying your credit cards in full each month. The reason why you want to try and get more credit, that is when you request a credit limit increase. When you do that, this helps with your credit utilization. So let's say we used the example before of you had a credit card account with $1,000 to it. Now, let's say you asked for, and let's say you were using, let's say we were using $200 of that $1,000. So that is 20% of our credit utilization that we were using. Now, when you ask for an increase, let's say we asked for an increase and they increased it to $2,000. Now we're still using that same $200 on that credit card, but it drops our utilization down to 10%. And that's the little sweet spot. We want to be 10% and under that we would like to be in or whatever. So when you ask for a credit limit increase, it helps with your credit utilization. So it doesn't look like you're carrying as much, you're not using as much of the credit. So you always want to ask for more than what you need. So and I know people are in different situations and people use credit cards for different reasons. Just be smart about using your credit card. But let's say you have to use your credit card for everyday expenses. If that is the case for you, you want to make sure your credit card has a higher limit than what you actually need. So let's say you need $1,000, like you might have to charge $1,000 on your credit card each month, God forbid, but let's just say that's the situation. If that's the case, you want your credit limit to be as high as possible. Like up to $5,000, if not more, $10,000, that kind of thing. You want it to be as high as possible. But where people run into trouble is if you are not being responsible with your credit, you will see that higher limit and you will want to spend. He even said something in the book, like just because you have that higher credit limit, that doesn't mean you have the budget for that higher amount. So you definitely have to be smart when it comes to using your credit and asking for the increase. And that's why he says get more credit is only for people who are financially responsible and you're paying your credit cards in full, because you can easily be tempted and say, hey, they've increased it. Now I got this $10,000 limit. And then you start charging up stuff and you don't even make, $10,000 a month or whatever. So it's going to be hard for you to pay off that credit. So if you ask for a credit limit, just be mindful of that. Oftentimes too, they will give these credit card companies, they will give you a credit limit without you asking. And that's because they want you to spend more money. So sometimes, like I know this is what happened. Like I was following the techniques and stuff, and I paid off my one of my credit cards, and it was one of the credit cards where I had a 0% balance on it. So I made sure I was not carrying a balance once that 0% went off. Guess what, y'all? As soon as that 0% was over with, guess what they hit me with? They gave me like a $1,000 or $1,500 credit increase without me even asking, because they want me to spend more money. They know now I'm not protected by that 0% interest rate anymore. And if I'm tempted to spend more money, they're going to make more money off of me, because now I'm going to be charged the regular interest rate on the purchases. So just be mindful of that. But also same thing with like negotiating your interest rate, your APR. You can also ask for a credit increase every 6 to 12 months. And usually with that too, I haven't had them ready to deny me for a credit increase. Like they usually are trying to get you to spend more money. So you definitely have to be strategic and financially responsible so that you are not overspending. And the last commandment he has for credit cards is to use your credit card secret perks. And what he meant by that is he says that he pretty much does all of his purchases through his credit card. Majority of his purchases that he does through his credit cards. And that's because if you purchase something like a product, oftentimes your credit card will offer you an extended warranty. He used an example of like if you bought a smartphone or iPhone or whatever, and let's say their warranty is for a year. Usually your credit card company has an extended warranty if your phone got damaged, if you purchased it with the credit card that you can use to get it replaced. Also, when it comes to like car rental insurance, usually your credit card has that built into it. So you don't necessarily have, like if you rent a car, you don't necessarily have to purchase the extra insurance that they might offer because your credit card is covering that. Also, trip cancellation insurance is usually provided by your credit card, as well as like concierge services. And he used the example of like him trying to get tickets to a concert. They have these like special perks that are provided with the card that they will help you to get access to certain things. Okay. So those were the 6 commandments that he had of credit cards. I'm going to review them really quick. Number 1 was pay your bill on time. 2 was to try to get your fees waived. 3 was negotiate a lower APR. Number 4 was keep your main card for as long as possible and keep your cards active. Number 5 was to get more credit, so ask for a credit increase. And 6 was try to use your credit card's secret perks. So that's what we had there. And there's a couple other things I'm going to mention, and we're going to start talking about the banks. But let me see. Since I have a few questions or comments, I should say. All right, so this is my hubby. He says, pay the credit card off monthly or stick to cash. Debt will not be your friend. No, it will not. It definitely will not. And that's often why I will use, at one point I was using the cash envelopes more. And April says, don't treat your credit cards as a source of income. It's not. Yeah. And a lot of people will, thank you, April, for that point. A lot of people will do that. Yeah, that is not your income. That is just money that you are temporarily borrowing and you have to pay it back. And ideally, you want to pay it back within that month, because if not, there are repercussions and consequences when you don't. Okay. Now, once again, usually, like I said, all the money books, they talk about a little bit about mindset as well. And I would be remiss if I did not mention this. Is he asks in the book, what are your money beliefs? Like, what are some of your beliefs about money? And he talks about a lot of our beliefs about money. They come from our childhood and the things that we saw growing up, and it's kind of just been imprinted upon us. And we carry some of those same beliefs, into adulthood. So sometimes you have to shift your money perspective compared to what you grew up thinking or grew up being told and stuff like that. I know for me, I had to shift one of my money beliefs. I remember when I was young, I probably was like 10 or so, maybe a little bit younger. And I remember my mom would say, our ship is going to come in. Like, our ship is going to come in. I asked her, I was like, what does that mean? And she was like, we're going to come into, we're going to come into money. So for a while, for a long time, I would believe like money is just supposed to like come to us. Now, I do have money affirmations where I say like money flows to me easily and effortlessly and that kind of stuff. But I'm literally thinking like a ship, like a pirate, like in my little young mind, like a pirate ship, like filled with gold. Like, we are going to receive it, and all I got to do is wait for for somebody to sail the ship in or whatever with our money on it or whatever. So. And that's kind of like, that is, and I had to realize that is like a passive approach to money. Like, it's just going to happen to you. No, you got to go out and do certain things and make some stuff happen. And yes, sometimes you are blessed or you are lucky and you might receive, financial blessings and stuff like that. But you got to put the work in, and you also have to be smart and strategic when it comes to your money and managing your money as well. So what are some of your money beliefs? Some of your money beliefs may be like, I will never make enough money, or I will never have enough money, or money is hard to obtain or whatever. So what are these money beliefs, and are they positive or are they negative? And if they are negative, we need to shift it to some more positive aspects of it. Okay. So that's what I wanted to mention with that. Now, since we were talking about credit, I do have to go over his steps that he would want you to take for the week. Because like I said, it's like a 6-week program that he has when it comes to I will teach you to be rich. So his step 1 he has for this chapter was you need to pay off your is to pay off your debt, or well, excuse me, start paying off your debt, but figure out how much debt you have. And he talked about oftentimes people don't even know how much they owe, especially when you have like credit card debt and stuff like that. So start paying off your debt and figure out how much you owe is step 1. So just gathering all your different expenses, all your different debts, credit cards, personal loans, whatever it is, figure out what your debt is and start working your way to pay it off. And then the step 2 is once you have decided, hey, I'm going to pay off my debt, decide what debt you want to pay off first. Now, we've also talked about, the debt snowball versus the debt avalanche and the benefits of that. But just decide what debt you want to pay off first. Oftentimes, it's usually more rewarding if you pick the one that has the smaller balance so that you can quickly see the rewards of your results, but you need to figure that out for yourself. The third step he has is to negotiate down your APR, and this is for your credit cards, because as you know, if you got a student loan, a mortgage, well, if you have a student loan, you cannot negotiate those down because most of those are federal loans, so you can't negotiate that down. Now, if you do have a mortgage, it's possible that you could negotiate it down, probably not in this particular climate, although I hear interest rates are supposed to be dropping. So you can see if you can get a lower interest rate on your mortgage. The only drawback with that is you want to make sure those closing costs do not eat up any savings you might accumulate from you negotiating down to a lower APR. So, or percentage rate, I should say. The fourth step he has is decide where the money to pay off your debt will come from. So that goes back to, and he doesn't go into depth with this. I would definitely recommend Tiffany's book, The Budgetista, with Get Good with Money for tackling how you're going to find some extra money, because she pretty much breaks down in that book. And look back at that video. I think that first video is where she tells you like to write down all of your monthly expenses as well as the monthly income that you have coming in, so you can see where you can possibly get the money to pay off the debt or any extra money to pay off your debt. But he says decide where the money to pay off your debt will come from. But Tiffany's book does a very good breakdown of how you can take that step and do that. And then the fifth thing he has is to get started. Okay. And then also he recommends that you get your free credit report and your score for this week as well as set up your credit card and ensure you're handling your credit cards effectively. And that goes with setting up auto payments, making sure your APR is as low as possible, and paying off your debt. So that was chapter 1. Y'all, I've been talking too long, but I don't have as many notes for chapter 2, which is beat the banks. And I think what I'm going to do for this to make sure I'm hitting all the high points is I'm just going to go straight to the steps that he suggests for you to take when it comes to beating the banks. So the first thing he recommends, let me do this. Yeah, I'm going to do it that way. So, and then I'll hit some other little tips and stuff that I see. So the first thing he recommends for the second week when it comes to like opening a bank account is open a checking account or assess the one you already have. And when he says open a checking account, he talks about you should have a checking and a savings account. And he recommends, he has about 3 different suggestions, but he does one of the suggestions that I more readily kind of relate to is having your checking account and your savings account in 2 different banks. Okay. So your checking account, you might have at a local bank, but your savings account, it could be like a high yield savings that is online. The reason for that is to make it not as easy to get access to your money. Because oftentimes, let's say he used an example, like maybe a friend told you, hey, let's go hang out for the weekend, and you look at your checking account and you realize, hey, all I got is $50 until the next payday or whatever. And if I spend this $50 going out, I won't have anything left or whatever. So you might, if your checking and your savings account were with the same bank, you could easily look at your savings account and say, okay, well, I got $1,000 saved up. Let me just transfer $100 over to the checking account so that I can go out with my friends this weekend or whatever. But if you had an online savings account or a savings account at a different bank, usually to transfer money from a separate bank, it usually is going to take at least a day, sometimes up to 3 days for the money to be transferred. So having that level of separation helps you not to make poor choices as easily, because you'll be more likely to think about, hey, it's going to be a little bit extra friction in order for me to get this money. And because I really don't have the money in the account, I probably should not be going to hang out with my friends this weekend because I really cannot afford it. Okay. So that is what he recommends, having a checking account and a savings account at a different bank. And he recommends having a high yield savings account. Y'all know I'm a big advocate for the online high yield savings account. You're going to get a higher interest rate than just a regular savings account. And he pretty much says like having a regular savings account is really like a waste of time. And I am of that philosophy. And I say that because I say it hesitantly because I actually do have a local savings account, but y'all, honestly, it really acts like an overflow account, kind of like what he was saying in the example. Like if I realize, hey, I'm running low on money in my checking account, guess what I do? I move that money out of the savings account into the checking account, which is not good. And that particular savings account, like I don't even really get, it's like 0.1%, 0.01% interest. Like I don't really make any interest on it or whatever. It was just like a product that they sold me at the bank and said, hey, you can easily do this and save money and all this kind of stuff. And I just got it. So after listening to this chapter, I am highly considering closing that account so I'm not as tempted to move money back and forth. It's not like I have a whole lot of money in there. I just have like a few $100s in there, but I'm highly thinking about closing that account and just strictly dealing with my online savings account. But that was one of the steps for you to take when it comes to the bank. Open a checking account or assess the one you already have. Also, he recommends switching to a no fee account. He says that you really should not be paying any fees when it comes to having a checking or a savings account. The other thing he recommends is opening an online high yield interest savings account, which we already talked about, and then to fund your online savings account. And he recommends that you have at least 1.5 months of living expenses in your checking account. And he recommends that because if you have that online savings account, like I mentioned, you're not going to be able to easily access the money from the savings account if you are low on funds in your checking account. But if you at least keep a minimum of 1.5 of your living expenses in your checking account, then if for some reason you kind of overspend, you have a little bit of a cushion, because that half a month cushion to kind of make for anything where you might have went a little bit out of control, which makes sense as well. And I will say, and I'm highly considering doing this too, because I do have a minimum that I have in my checking account. And like once it hits that minimum, like my minimum is not zero. Like in my checking account, my minimum is never zero. I don't ever let it get to zero. But I do have a minimum that I know once it gets to this point, I really should not be spending any more money. But that minimum is not, a month and a half of expenses. It's only about $1,000 or whatever. It's not a month and a half of expenses, but I am going to work towards getting to it, having it be a month and a half, just so I can have that little cushion in there and to make sure that I am not overspending. So those were the things with that. And I might not be able. He also says avoid like overdraft fees, avoid shady banks that have shady practices. And he calls out some of the big banks that have been in the news. And then also, I will mention this. He says, don't pick an account because of their introductory rates, which are known as teaser rates. So let's say the bank offers you like, or they waive this particular thing for a couple of months. He says you want to pick a bank that is going to give you a good rate, or, no fees, not just for a few months, but for the lifetime that you are going to have, for years that you will have the account. Okay. And then also he says avoid banks that require a minimum balance just to get free services. So he had some other good points, but like I said, you want to definitely read that chapter for yourself. And let me see, I have a few comments, and then I'm going to read those, and then I'm going to wrap on up. All right. Crystal, it is good to see you. I'm so glad you joined. Y'all, this is a good friend of mine. I'm so glad to see you on here. All right, so Crystal says, yes, separating checking and savings was a game changer for me. High yield savings is the truth. Yes, y'all. So if you do not have a high yield savings account, I highly, highly, highly recommend. He made some suggestions in the book. And the accounts he suggested, I have accounts with both of them. What is it? The Capital One 360. Now that one is a high yield savings account, but it's not the highest. He says he uses that for like his everyday, I guess like expenses. I forget what he says he uses as. And then he also recommends Ally. Now, I will say, like I said in the beginning, I am not a financial expert or advisor or anything like that. Do your own due diligence, do your own research. I use the Capital One 360. I also use Ally. I also use the Synchrony. Y'all know I got a whole bunch of accounts. If y'all saw my video about, I have like over 20 accounts or whatever. But those have, my Synchrony one is actually the one that has the higher interest rate. Now, I haven't been shopping around or anything like that. So I haven't shopped around for a couple of years to see who might have a higher fee, but I'm sure there are other ones out there that might even offer you a higher interest rate on your high yield savings account. And then Crystal also says the interest on a regular savings account is disrespectful. Yes, it is. It is like nothing. And that's why I was like, I don't even know why I have that one at my local bank. Well, I do know. It was just like a product that they had sold me. And I was like, okay, I might as well open it or whatever. And I just keep money in it, but I need to get rid of it. All right, Cynthia, good to see you as well. It's been a while since I've seen you, so I hope you've been doing good. She says, hi, Rita. I have not been live, but I've been watching the replays. Thank you, Cynthia, so much. And she says, Cynthia, I have a lot of catching up to do. You probably don't, Cynthia. Cynthia, you usually are on top of your stuff, and you usually are helping us on here. And then Cynthia says, I've heard that Capital One is a good bank. I have not had any issues. And quite honestly, with that Capital One, I was kind of grandfathered into that account because that account, that was when, I don't know if y'all remember ING. ING was like one of the first online high yield savings accounts or banks or whatever. And I remember this was when I was in school in Philadelphia, and they actually had a brick and mortar location that you could go to, and they gave out like free coffee and all this kind of stuff. It was like a good experience. But so I initially opened that account with ING, and then I guess Capital One ended up buying out ING, and that is how I got that Capital One 360 account or whatever. But it originally started as an ING account, and I was just blown away with the ING account just because, like I said at the time, and that was probably, like over 10 years ago, maybe. No, it's been longer than that. Like almost 15 years ago or so that had first came about, and they were offering that higher interest rate. And I want to say it was probably like what it is right now, like 4% or close to 5%, which was unheard of. And with me being like a college student, like I'm getting that amount of money back on my money. It was a really good experience. And any extra money that I would put from my student loans, that's what I put into that account. Prior to that, I was putting it into like a CD because that was the only thing I knew. And then once I saw this, I went to the high yield savings account. So definitely check it out. And let's see. April says they lured you in with free coffee. That was when like they had like the little frappuccinos like you would get at like Starbucks and stuff. And y'all, if y'all know, Starbucks coffee was high or whatever, and the fact that you could get a frappuccino for free and come in there, and they had like Wi-Fi access and all that kind of stuff. That was like back in the day when Wi-Fi access was not readily accessible in all the different places. So it was like a whole little vibe and a whole little experience and stuff going into the ING bank. But yes, they lured me in with the experience. But y'all, I hope this was helpful for y'all. So those were the first 2 chapters of I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I'm trying to pull up. So the next chapters, they are talking about get ready to invest. So we're going to be talking about investment, and that is a pretty the next 2 chapters are pretty long. So it says get ready to invest, and then conscious spending is the next chapter. So I'm trying to do 2 chapters at least. So we'll see, but the next 2 chapters are kind of lengthy, so it's probably going to have a lot of information. And then we'll wrap up with the last few chapters because those are not long at all. But yeah, I hope this is helpful for y'all. And if y'all know anyone who could benefit from the information, make sure y'all are sharing it with a friend, enemy, whoever you think can benefit from it. Okay. So that we can all get good with our money, secure the bag, and increase our finances so that we can start living a richer life. All right. That is all I have for now. Take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your week.